Hey guys, welcome back to Premium Film Collectibles. In today's review I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm going to be washing the hair of the head sculpt from the BVS Wonder Woman. This hair is not very good at all. It's very doll-like and I want to fix it the best way possible. So today I'm going to show you how to do that. So if you just want to stay tuned and I can take you step by step. Okay, so you're going to want to get a fabric softener that's really high quality. I've just got this fluffy one here. It should do the job. It doesn't really matter which one you get, just as long as it's a good fabric softener. This one's not that expensive. It's about $8.99, so it's very affordable to pick up just from the supermarket. I've also got some muck clay that I'm going to be putting in her hair as well at the end of this tutorial once I wash it. This muck clay I think has a great kind of matte effect look on the doll's hair. I know that many people kind of use like hair gel, but it really does actually make the doll's hair look like quite wet and oily, and it kind of looks a little bit cheap. So I've gone for something that's a little bit more of like a matte finish, and this will help you kind of style it more, and it actually sticks a lot more to other parts of hair. So I would definitely recommend using something that's more like a clay instead of a gel. This is the bowl, or like a hair dye kind of bowl that I've got here that I will be using to dunk the hair into, and obviously you can just pour the fabric softener in it, and it's very easy. If you don't have something like this, you can just use like a plastic container. It will work just fine. I've got 3 sets of kind of combs. So I've got this thick one here. This thick one here kind of works well because after you soak the hair in the fabric softener, you kind of want to be very gentle with it so you don't rip the doll's hair. So after you've done this, you kind of want to move on to something that's got a little bit more, that's a little bit more thinner, so you can kind of catch onto the doll's hair a little bit better. I've just got this white little old comb and it will work really nicely, so I'll just pop that there. And you've kind of got this hair clip comb as well. They work very nicely as well. This is kind of like my last resort. You can use all 3. Today I can use all 3 probably and show you that, but I will be sticking to these 2 mainly because they have the best effect. I've got some mini scissors as well. These are just for the flyaways, or if you want to kind of give the doll's hair a bit of a trim, you're more than welcome to do so yourself. And finally, I've just got some gloves, and I'll pop those on right now and we'll get started. Okay, so let me put my gloves on. So I know it can be really daunting kind of washing a doll's hair because you feel like you might even ruin it a little bit more. That's not the case with fabric softener. It's probably the best way to do it, I feel. So I've got the head sculpt mounted on the end of a brush. This sticks into the hole at the bottom of her head here, and it sticks in quite nicely because when we pour the fabric softener in this little container here, you kind of want to mix it around slightly, and you also don't want this head sculpt dropping into the fabric softener because you just don't want a chance ruining something like this, just because it's quite expensive as well. So the safest way possible is making sure 100% that you've got the head sculpt on something. So I'll just pop this down right now, and let's start with the fabric softener. Pour as much as you kind of need into the bowl. I would start off with a very small amount first, so you're not wasting much of this. And then we're going to grab the head sculpt and we're just going to put it through. So while you're soaking this, you kind of want to run your fingertips within the hair just so you can kind of separate anything that's kind of knotted. But when you're doing this, you kind of want to mix it all the way around because you don't want to miss a lot of the hair. And then at the top near the head, you kind of want to dunk it a little bit lower, just so it's getting all of the hair, because you don't want to make, you want to make sure that you don't miss any parts of the hair when you do this, because you'll have some areas then sitting a little bit abnormal compared to the rest of the hair that's going to be washed, and it's going to be nice and soft. So that's what it looks like. I'll give you a closer look, and I'm kind of just soaking the doll's hair in the fabric softener, and it's kind of getting a little bit more sticky and gooey. And you kind of want to do like circular motions. Obviously once I had it down, I was able to kind of brush it a little bit more. So that kind of helped me to unknot her hair a little bit, because I think the product that Hot Toys kind of uses is just like a generic thing. I'm not 100% to be honest with you, what they use on the doll's hair, but it doesn't really sit well, so that's why we're here doing this. Okay guys, so with this now, I'm going to leave it for about an hour. You can leave it overnight, or you can leave it a little bit longer. It just depends on the doll's hair. Like, this doll's hair is not extremely bad. So I'm just going to leave this for an hour, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you the next step. So guys, it's been about an hour and a half since I've left the hair in the fabric softener, and as you can see, it's kind of soaked up pretty nicely. So the next step is going to be brushing the hair out. So with this, you kind of want to use the bigger brush first, the one that's not as fine, just so you can gently stroke it through the hair. This is because you want to use the bigger brush first, just so you don't break the doll's hair, and very, very gentle combs through the hair. When you kind of stroke it, you'll see that I'm kind of having a bit of trouble, and it has a little bit of knots in it, but once I get through with the comb, they are coming out pretty nicely because of the fabric softener. So I'm combing it out. You can do this as long as you like. I would only continue to do it until you feel like there's no more knots left in their hair. But it just depends, because if you're not doing it for this head sculpt, all dolls' hair are really, really different, and all figures' hair are really, really different. You've got some that are pretty decent, they sit really nicely, and then you've got some others that are completely horrible, that do not even sit nicely at all. Okay, so I think I'm kind of done brushing it with this larger comb, because as you can see now, it's kind of just running through the hair very, very nicely. So there's no more knots left, so that should be it. So what we'll do is we'll move on to step 3. Okay, so step 3, we're going to grab the white finer brush, and now we're going to brush through the hair again, again very gently, just so you don't break it. So now you'll notice that you can feel like there is a few more knots in the hair again. This is because you're using a different brush. So don't panic. The black brush was the one that kind of took out the bigger clumps, and this is the one that takes out more of the finer ones. A few kind of hairs will come off in this process. I've had a few on the brush, but not so many, and this really helps when you're brushing it. You can kind of dunk it back in the fabric softener as well when you're doing this. It just depends how long you want to leave the fabric softener in there for. I've got no issue with kind of dunking it back in and forth when I'm kind of brushing the doll's hair, because it just will make it even softer. The aim is to leave the fabric softener in as long as possible. Usually it's recommended to leave it in overnight, but I've never tried that before, because an hour and a couple of hours, it usually works for me. So I'm just sticking with what I know best, just in case anything goes wrong, but I've never had any issues using fabric softener. So I think I'm pretty much done with brushing it out with the final one. I might use the other brush as well, so the hair comb brush, just to see if there's any more smaller knots in it. So this is the hair comb brush that I have. And I'm just going to stroke it through her hair. And it's going through pretty nicely. So the fabric softener has done a really good job at taking out all those knots and making the hair really soft. So the next step is step 4. So let's move on to that. Okay guys, so the next step now is we're going to rinse the hair in cold water. So it's important that you don't put it in hot water or warm water, because it will kind of tighten up the hair, and we don't want that right now. We kind of want to cool the hair off. So we're going to just wash it with some cold water under the sink. And be sure to always get all the fabric softener out. So what I'll usually do is I'll squeeze the excess out into the bowl. So you can see how the doll's hair is kind of sitting like that. You kind of want to squeeze any remaining fabric softener out, just so it doesn't sit in the hair, because if you leave that fabric softener in the hair for quite a while, it can actually damage the doll's hair. So that's why you want to make sure you wash it out enough. But so far I think she's looking okay, and the hair is really soft, so I'm really excited to rinse this off and see what we can do with it. So again, just make sure you're washing this with cold water just underneath the sink. And make sure to wash it very thoroughly. While I'm doing this, I've got some stray hairs that are kind of coming out, which is normal, so don't panic. So I'm kind of just running my fingers through her hair, making sure that there's no more fabric softener that has been left in her hair. Just going to squeeze that dry. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with how I've washed out her hair. There doesn't seem to be any more fabric softener in there. How you can tell is that if the water just runs clear, you're good to go. And let's move on to the next step, which is drying her hair off. Okay guys, for step 5, what we're going to do is we're going to grab just like a mini towel, and you kind of just want to pat the hair dry. Okay, so it's very important to remember with this step that you never use the hair dryer to dry the doll's hair, doll figure, whatever you want to call it, just because it will damage the hair. Because if you heat the doll's hair up, it's going to cause it to break. It's very delicate at the moment because of the fabric softener, so it's nice and soft now, so you don't want to overheat it, because overheating it will make it very fuzzy. But this step takes a little while longer because you need to let this dry on its own. So you can't really force this to dry. Obviously squeeze it as much as you can with the hand towel, and as dry as you can get it is good, but then you need to let it sit on its own and dry by itself. So you can put this in the sun if you like. I'm not going to pop it in the sun. I'm just going to leave it to dry by itself, just because that's probably the best way possible. Again, you don't want to expose this to too much heat, or even having this in the sun, you don't really want to fade any paint on that head sculpt. So just the safe option is just to pop it in the corner, let it dry, and leave it until the next step. But that's how she's looking so far, and I think her hair will end up being really, really nice once I'm done with it. So really what the fabric softener does, it kind of allows you to kind of move it a lot more, style it a lot better, but that's what it's looking like. And I'm just going to leave this to dry now on its own, and then we will go on with the next step. Okay guys, for step 6, we're moving on to kind of styling and touching up the hair without using the product just yet. So this is what it's looking like so far. It looks a lot more smooth than it was initially. And the hair has a little bit more volume. It's not fuzzy volume, it's just a little bit more thicker, and there's not really any flyaways with this, as you can see. So the hair's not all over the place. So that's what the fabric softener does. So once this is dried out, that's what it should look like. So what I'll do now is I'll grab the mini scissors, so just these ones here, and I'm going to kind of give her like, not a massive haircut, but just a slight snip here and there with all the kind of small flyaways that are kind of hanging off her hair. So I'm just going to go from the front first, and then we're going to go from the back. To be honest, I'm not a big fan of cutting the hair of the doll or the figure, just because it's a little bit more complex. Even in the movie, I'm pretty sure her hair wasn't as long as it is here on this, but I don't really want to shorten it at this point in time, so I'm just going to stick with what I've got and keep her hair as is with how it came. So it's just important to remember we're only cutting away basically kind of loose bits that don't seem to be fitting on the doll's hair. Okay, so I've cut everything that I wanted. So let's move on to the next step, which will be brushing the hair out after it's dry with this. Okay guys, for step 7, I've brought out this comb brush here. So I'm going to be using the fine end of that kind of comb, as you can see. So this is going to pull her hair upwards. So I'm trying to create a bit more volume at the top of her hair so it's not kind of sitting flat. So what I'm doing is I'm pulling the hair up and I'm pulling it back. So this is with no product in it at all. This is still all natural, nothing's in it, the fabric softener's washed out. So this is just kind of brushing it for one more final time. And yeah, that's pretty much all I do with that. And we're going to be moving on to the next step, which is step 8. So I kind of want to curl her hair. I don't want it to look flat. I don't want it to look like it's kind of just got clay in it and it's good to go. Because really what happens with this is that you kind of got to grab it with your fingers and you need to part the hair. So little by little, you part the hair. So I brush these little parts out. And what I'll do, I'll curl that little part with my hand. So then you've got that kind of curly effect at the front there. So you kind of want to do this until you kind of move around to your whole head. So I'm just going to do a couple more parts and then I'll skip through that onto the next step. So I'll just do 1 or 2 more parts here. So the same, brush it out, that little part, and then you want to grab that piece of hair, curl it, and then let it sit by itself how it needs to sit. So I'm going to do the other side as well, one of the parts on her other side. So I'm just going to part this little section here at the front. It can get a little bit tricky when you don't have this sitting in like a stand. I've just got this kind of pegged in her head sculpt and I'm just balancing it. So again, brush this out. And I'm going to curl that just with my finger like this again. Okay, so I'm going to do the rest of the head off camera and then I will come back. Okay guys, so off camera I basically went around and I curled everything. I did give her a little bit more of a trim as well. I probably cut off like more than half of a fingernail of hair, just with these little scissors here again. I might kind of just demonstrate a little bit because there's still a few more pieces that I do want to cut off. You kind of want to just snip down ways when you're snipping at the hair, just so that the hair doesn't cut flat and straight. So you don't want to snip directly across, you kind of want to snip down ways. That will kind of help make sure that the hair doesn't look like it's just being chopped. I'm actually quite happy with cutting her hair and the length that I've got it to, because in BVS it wasn't super long. So I think this length is pretty good and it's pretty safe. I don't know if I want to go any more because I think it might look too short. Okay, so far this is what it looks like. You've got a really nice look at the front here and how they're all curled there as well. So the back might touch up slightly with a few more curls, but the sides are looking really cool. And with these as well, you can honestly just, since you've got like that kind of muck wax in there, they kind of sit very freely to how you kind of want to play with the hair. So if I want to flatten it more, it will come in and sit. If I want it to just give it a little bit more of a futz, it will come out like that. Okay, so I'm going to give it a couple more combs off camera, and then I'm going to put my final touches on it. You won't be missing anything. I'm just basically futzing around with it a little bit more, and then I will show you some close-up shots of the final style that I've decided to go for with the hair. Okay guys, this is the final look for Wonder Woman's hair. As you can see, I've curled it quite a bit on both sides. I gave it a trim, and that's the back of it as well. You can pretty much play with it and rouge it up a little bit more, but I've just kind of gone for something that's a little bit more simple. The way it's sitting is really nice. And now I'm just going to pop it onto the figure behind, and you can see what the final look is with how she's posing and her new hairstyle. Okay guys, for the final touch, we're going to pop the head sculpt onto the figure so you can see how it sits nicely with her new hair. So when you're doing this, you kind of want to hold the figure just so it doesn't pop off. Once you hear that pop in, kind of want to wiggle it to the side a little bit. And there you have it. You've got Wonder Woman from BVS with her new hairstyle. I think it turned out really, really well in my opinion. I'll just turn it around just for some side shots. It's the back of her hair, sitting nicely, curled, trimmed. The side of her hair again. And the front. So this was pretty easy overall. You just got to kind of work with it to the best of your ability. I know that it can be daunting kind of working with like a doll's hair or a figure's hair sometimes because you're afraid to ruin it because they're so expensive, and I know once you kind of go for it, you won't stop. So I'm a bit more confident now to kind of do this to a couple of other figures than I do have in my line. I know that some of the Black Widows, especially the one from Age of Ultron, her hair is pretty bad, so I feel like I might fix that down the line in the next upcoming tutorial on how to fix a figure or doll's hair. But for the final few things, I'll give you a few single close-up shots of this. This is just what it looks like kind of raw. So I just wanted to do a long video for you guys just so you can get a better idea of like how to do this, and don't be daunted to kind of go for it because it can be really fun as well. So this is the final look that I've decided to go on with the hair. It's pretty good, but now it's time to take a closer look and get some more close-up shots. So as you can see, this is extra close, and you can see all the curls that I've added to her hair on the sides. And let's rotate now to the back. And her hair is still nice and curled. All the product is pushed in. Kind of got to make sure you always brush that product all the way out just so it's not kind of sitting in clunks in the hair. And that's the other side with all the curls and how it's sitting. But yeah, I'm really, really happy overall with how the final hair looks. I think it's a little bit more accurate to how she had it in BVS when she was battling at the end. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up or hit the subscribe button down below to stay up to date with the latest tutorials, reviews and unboxings with Premium Film Collectibles.